Conversation with the Candidate continues right now.
Welcome back to our Conversation with the Candidate with our guest, Nikki Haley. We have lots of questions from our town hall audience right here. I might have a follow-up or two and some viewer questions that come in, but we want to jump right into things with Thalia Flores.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you
for being here and taking my question.
Thank you.
What issues will you focus on that will appeal to enough Republican-based voters to beat the former president in the primary and still appeal to moderate voters in the general election?
Well, I think we have to look at a few things. You know, Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's not something Republicans should be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. And when we look at where we are in our country, we've got a lot of issues, whether it's dealing with the debt and the spending that's out of control, whether it's our children and the lack of transparency in schools, whether it's the fact that we've got crime on the streets or an open border, or the fact that we've got national security concerns around the world. The focus needs to be on results. Government needs to start working for the people instead of the other way around. We've lost sight of that. But in order to do that, we have to have a new generational leader. We need to leave the baggage and the negativity behind, and we have to focus on the new problems that we have with new solutions that we have. And that's what I'm going to do. I've been a 2-term governor that took a double-digit unemployment state and turned it into an economic powerhouse. I was at the United Nations. I didn't deal with one country. I dealt with 193. We need an executive that comes in that knows how to deal with the legislature or a body like Congress, but we also need someone that knows domestic policy and foreign policy. And I'm an accountant. I'm not a lawyer, so we're problem solvers by nature. So, you know, that's how we'll do it. And I think Americans are ready. America's tired. They're tired. You see it on their faces. When I'm in all these town halls, I feel it. They're tired of the fact that it's just so much drama. They just want to see results. They just want to see people work for them. And I think you look at the fact that we're almost $32 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. But when you look at that, it would be easy for me to say, oh, Biden did that. But I've always spoken hard truths, and I'm going to do that with you today. Our Republicans did that to us too. You go back to that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that passed with no accountability whatsoever. It left us expanding Medicare. We have 90 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. And did Republicans do anything? No, they doubled down on earmarks for the first time in 10 years, pushing through 7,000 of them in December. Want to know how they spent your money? $7.5 million on horse racing in Arizona, $30 million on an honors college in Vermont, $10 million on a courthouse in Colorado. That's not how we want our money spent. All while 1 in 6 Americans can't pay their utility bill. 60% of Americans are in credit card debt. Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare is going to go bankrupt in 5. It's time that we bring some sanity back to our country. We don't work hard to just hand it over to Congress to do that. We've got to make sure Congress understands we have got to live within our means. We shouldn't even be having this debt ceiling crisis right now.
Thank you.
One follow-up for you, Ambassador. You've been adept at avoiding fights with former President Trump. What happens in this primary when you do have to get into one with him?
I have no problem with saying what I need to say. I am always just a truth teller. And I actually got along very well with President Trump because, you know, when he was doing something, I'd fight, I'd help, I'd support. We wanted to do this for America. And when I disagreed with him, I would go and say, you can't do this, but instead you could do X, Y, or Z. I always gave options. And so there are many things that I agree with him on. I agree with him on illegal immigration and how out of control it is. I agree with him on getting the right justices in there so that they actually follow the rule of law. But I disagree with him on some things too. You know, he thinks January 6th was a beautiful day. I think it was a terrible day in our country. He thinks that we should stay neutral when it comes to Ukraine and Russia. I think for our national security, a win for Ukraine is good for America. You know, he thinks that there's not an issue with spending. I think there's out of control spending and that our kids will never forgive us for this. So there are differences, and there will be times where we talk about that, but the biggest difference is just our approach. You know, my way of doing things is very different than his way of doing things. So we agree on a lot of issues, but my approach is very different. And that is that the American people are tired and they want to feel good about our country again. They want to love our country again. And we owe that to them.
Next question comes from Jeffrey Bradley.
Thank you, Ambassador, for being with us.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate having this opportunity to meet candidates in New Hampshire.
Of course.
There's a saying attributed to a Dutch politician about 150 years ago when transport options were more limited. This is not a transportation question. Here was the line: trust comes on foot and leaves on horseback. Trust comes on foot and leaves on horseback. Now, when I listen to Washington, sometimes I can't hear the voices for the sound of the horse's hooves and all the lack there is of trust. So my question is, what could you, President Haley, do to restore greater trust in our institutions of government in Washington?
Well, it's what I did as governor of South Carolina. It's what I did as ambassador at the United Nations. I always told people what they needed to hear, not what they wanted to hear. I always told the truth. So when I went to the United Nations, I told those countries what America was for and what America was against. I didn't care if they didn't like me, but I wanted them to respect America. When I was governor in South Carolina, and we faced a lot of crises from, a church shooting to multiple hurricanes, I put all the information out there for them, was very transparent, and I let them make the decisions they needed that were in their best interest. And I think what we're seeing happen now in DC is you're seeing they love to get on TV and gaslight. They love to get on TV and do the fear mongering, but they don't get on TV and tell you the truth. I think it's really important that the American people deserve to hear the truth. Doesn't matter if they agree with you. What matters is they trust you enough to tell them the truth, acknowledge the problem, give them your insight on how you think you need to solve it, and then it's up to the person of service to go and convince them the right way to go. And when you do that, you bring out the best of Americans. That's when they actually feel like they're a part of something greater than what we have. And that's what I want. I think trust is hugely important. The reason I've been in New Hampshire so many times, I think we've done 30 events now. The reason I've done that is I'm not going to stop until I touch every hand. I'm going to get in front of every person. You're not going to see me go do a rally and come back. You're going to see me stand and take questions from you over and over again, because it's what I did when I ran as a legislator against the longest serving legislator in South Carolina. It's what I did when I ran for governor, when I ran against a lieutenant governor, an attorney general, a popular congressman, and a state senator, and I was polling at 3%. When you go and you have those eye-to-eye contacts, those conversations with real people, that's when the trust develops. That's when the relationship develops. And I'm not going to stop until I do that, and no one will outwork me in this, because you deserve that.
We'll hold you to it.
Thank you. I hope you do.
Next question comes from Joan Wentworth.
Hi, Joan.
Good evening. When you were governor of South Carolina, you voted never to expand Medicaid. South Carolina is also a state with one of the highest maternal and infant mortality rates in the country. Given your strongly pro-life belief, could you please discuss why you do not support a program that has the potential to make health care more affordable and accessible to lower-income women and families?
Well, first of all, if you go look at what we did in South Carolina, we focused on lifting up everybody, not just a certain amount. But rather than expanding Medicaid that was going to put more people in dependency, I focused on what does it take to lift everybody up. So, for example, we had thousands of people on welfare. What I did was we went and we took a welfare recipient, we took a small business that needed help, and I said, I will pay for this person for X weeks if you will take them, train them, and at the end of it, you decide if you want to hire them. We moved 35,000 people from welfare to work, because for the first time, these people felt like they had a purpose. They felt like they had dignity. They wanted to work. They just needed help putting it together. And it helped the small businesses because they saw how hard they were working. When you look at what we did with our prisons, I went into our prison system and I said, I want to know why they ended up there and what happens to them when they are there. And we went in and we started focusing on teaching them to do a budget, family planning. We offered them faith-based help. We taught them a skill. I partnered with my businesses. We put equipment behind the fence. We taught them a skill, and now in South Carolina, when an inmate leaves the fence, they've got a job to go to the next day. We have the lowest recidivism rate in the country. So I focus on how do we lift people up. It's easy and lazy to expand Medicaid, because all you're doing is giving people money just to buy them time. I wanted more for them. I wanted them to have better. And so what I said is we're going to focus on making you the best you could possibly be. It's the same reason when we turned South Carolina into an economic powerhouse and we brought in all those companies. I went to the company and I said, you have to make me 2 conditions. 1, you have to hire my small businesses to do all your work. And 2, I want you to at least give my South Carolinians the opportunities to do this. South Carolinians at that time didn't know how to build a plane or a car or a tire. But what I did was I partnered with our technical schools. We sent people overseas to the company. We learned their culture. We learned their training. We came back. In our tech schools, we had South Carolinians go in and learn those skills. Of all the people that we trained, they hired 97% of our South Carolinians to do those things. So I think you focus on the harder work to lift people up, and not the easier work of saying, okay, let's just expand Medicaid and pay off a few more people. I think people deserve better than that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question comes from Chris Stewas.
Hi, Ambassador.
Hi.
Welcome back to New Hampshire.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Thousands of Americans are continuing to die from opioid overdoses every year. Despite the efforts of many, New Hampshire has been and continues to be one of the hardest hit states. Other than securing the border, what specific steps would your administration take to confront this problem?
Well, I think, you mentioned certainly securing the border is a key component. So let's talk about that for a second. I am the only candidate that actually this cycle has gone to the border, and I didn't go and just come back. I went 400 miles down that border, and you're not ready for what I saw. When you get up in the morning, you get your coffee, you watch the news. When these ranchers get up in the morning, they get their coffee and they go see if anyone died crossing the fence. They pick up whatever little kids were left behind and turn them over to Border Patrol. When I talk to sheriffs, by 7 a.m. they've rounded up illegal immigrants, they turn them over to Border Patrol. Border Patrol documents them and releases them until their court date years from now. Then when I asked Border Patrol about their job, they said, you want to know what we do? We're glorified babysitters. They don't let us do our job. 5 million illegal immigrants have crossed the border. But what you're talking about, more fentanyl crossed the border last year that would kill every single American. #1 cause of death of adults 18 to 49, fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing when they send it over. This is all part of the bigger plan. So how do we deal with it? First of all, you acknowledge to China that we know they're doing it. There's nothing China hates worse than us hitting them in the wallet, and you sanction them until they stop the flow of fentanyl. They're sending it over to these cartels, and you treat those cartels for the terrorists that they are. We send in our special operation units, and we take them out just like we took out Al-Qaeda. And you stop all of that manufacturing that's happening there on the side of Mexico. When we do that, that's when we'll actually start saving Americans again. The idea, a lot of people think those who take fentanyl, that these are druggies. It's not. I met with some parents a month ago. Their child had gotten fentanyl. Well, they thought they were getting Adderall online to help with their tests, shared it with a friend, and the friend died by taking 1 Adderall. That's why this matters. That's why we have to do something about it. And so absolutely, it will be one of the first things we do is stop the terrorist activity, which is the cartels, but let China know that they are going to quit killing Americans and we're going to hold them to it. Thank you.
We have a question coming from online. Neil Welroth asks, do you believe that the election was stolen and rigged in 2020?
In 2020. So I can tell you, we certainly know that there were some irregularities that happened. We saw secretaries of state that are supposed to get the approval of their legislature. They didn't do it. We saw a lot of mail-out balloting that should not have happened, and we didn't have the election integrity that we needed. But it has been played out in multiple court cases, and there's no sign that it actually would have changed the results of the election. So I do think Joe Biden is our president. Having said that, what do we learn from that? I have been to many countries where people don't trust the election process. It is what weakens a democracy more than anything else. We have to have election integrity. When I was governor in South Carolina, we proposed voter ID, and I was vilified for it. They said I was disenfranchising voters, that I was keeping people from the polls. And I said, if you've got to show a picture ID to buy Sudafed, if you've got to show a picture ID to get on a plane, you should have to show a picture ID to protect the integrity of the election process. And I said, but I hear you. So if you think I'm disenfranchising voters, anyone who can't get an ID, we will go pick them up. We will take them to the DMV. We will give them a free ID and we'll return them home safely. Out of 5 million people in South Carolina, you know how many people asked for a ride? 25. We passed voter ID in South Carolina. We now have more people voting than ever before. So election integrity matters. We should never stop until we make sure that every person has faith that their vote is counted, that they are who they are. And the way you do that is, yes, you have voter ID, but you also, when we get in absentee ballots, verify signatures at the time that they come in and count them. Put them in a number. Nobody has to know the totals. Count them at the time. There is no excuse that any state would not give us election results on election night.
Next question comes from Claire Tino.
Hi, Claire.
Hi. Ms. Haley, how would your administration watch over the volatile situations around the world? It seems that the United States reacts to situations. All attention is focused for some amount of time, and then it fades away.
You're exactly right. You know, I think that you look at the situation and we literally don't lead, we react. And that's what we've seen all across the country. I mean, look at our national security situation right now. I mean, you've got Russia invading Ukraine, you've got North Korea testing ballistic missiles, you've got Iran building a bomb. Did you ever think we'd look at the sky and see a Chinese spy balloon looking back at us? It was a national embarrassment. But make no mistake, none of this would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. I'm the wife of a combat veteran. He deployed to Afghanistan. The idea that he and his military brothers and sisters had to watch us leave Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our friends. More importantly, think about what it told our enemies. You look at China now, they're on the march. They're building up their military. They have the largest naval fleet in the world. They have more air defense systems than we do. They just developed the 5th generation fighter jet. How? Stealing our intellectual property, and we handed it to them on a silver platter. They steal $600 billion of intellectual property from us every year. They've bought 400,000 acres of U.S. soil, most recently near Grand Forks Air Force Base, where our most sensitive drone technology is. We need to be smarter with what we do. And so that's why, first of all, there were 2 things at the United Nations that Russia, China, and our enemies never wanted us to have. They never wanted us to have energy independence, and they never wanted us to have a strong military. We will do both of those things. First of all, no more going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia. No more getting dirty oil from Venezuela. We will do what we need so that we're sufficient and never dependent on any country for our energy needs. The second thing is a strong military. Strong militaries don't start wars. Strong militaries prevent wars. We have to do that. We have to build up our military, and we have to focus on what's going to make them the greatest military in the world. They've always been that way. But you know what the greatest military in the world should not be doing? Taking gender pronoun classes. We've got to get the woke ideology out of that. We've got to focus on land, air, sea, artificial intelligence, cyber, because that's going to be the new focus of where we need to go. And then we just need to tell countries what we expect of them and make sure they do that. You know, when that Russian plane hit our U.S. drone a few weeks ago, what'd we do? Nothing. You know what I would have done? Put 2 more drones back up there in a fighter jet. I would put our naval fleet back in the Black Sea because it never should have left in the first place. That's what puts them on their heels. They just need to know we're paying attention. The other thing that's really important is we have to see Ukraine win this war with Russia. That war is bigger than a war about Ukraine. It's a war for freedom. And we have to make sure that they win, because a win for China, a win for Russia is a win for China, and we need to remember that. And Russia's losing right now. We know that because they're getting drones from Iran, they're getting missiles from North Korea. We don't need to put money into Ukraine. We don't need to put, I see you coming. We don't need to put troops on the ground, but we need to work with our allies to give them the equipment, the ammunition to win.
Thank you
when
to
we
Ambassador
win,
Haley
that'll send our enemies
for conversation
somewhere.
with the candidate.
Yes.
We've got Asa Hutchinson next week. This conversation continues online. Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you everyone for watching.
Great to be with you.